So today I'm going to be talking about marketing technology, and collectively they're known as marketing technology stacks. And this is not going to be a real expert kind of talk. It's more of a practical guide on how to get our heads around using this kind of technology and grouping them together. So I think the first thing we all need to know is this going to be a boring 20 minutes and complete waste of your time? I don't know. I can't guarantee it. I hope not. So if these are the things you want to kind of find out about, it's basically why is technology so important for marketing today and CMOs? If things like what is a marketing stack, what is a marketing technology stack? Could you benefit from using a stack in your business? The big problem when it comes to marketing technology today for marketers in terms of how to use it, how to solve that, and therefore then build your stack and end up with a happy ending, then hopefully you won't be bored. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. So this is a really interesting prediction that was made about 4 or 5 years ago by an analyst at Gartner. And she said that in 2017, CMOs would spend more on technology than CIOs, right? Than your information or your technology guys, your IT guys. And true enough, as of 2016, CMOs, according to a global survey, are spending very close, 3.24% of total revenue versus the traditional IT guys that are still spending 3.4%. So they've almost reached the same level. So that's a very interesting shift because only, let's say, 5, 10 years ago, it was all about, IT budget, marketing, you just need to spend on advertising. Now, a big part of marketing's budget is being spent in technology, and that's a huge shift. So why is technology, why is it so important for marketing? It's really down to data, and it's down to the whole internet. And the fact that as consumers using the internet or using any digital device, we are generating a ton of data in every single thing that we do, every single time we switch it on. We've heard about this throughout the session today. So the thing is, CMOs, unfortunately now, we can't run away from using that data. If we want to be good at our jobs, if we want to grow our businesses, you can't run away, you can't ignore it. Back in the day, you could totally run on gut. But now if you try and do that, you can get away for a bit, but you're not gonna survive. Your business isn't gonna survive for very long. So unfortunately, we have no choice because data is being created every day by consumers that we need to target. So why is data so important and how is it so useful for marketing? One is, of course, audience insights. We can learn a huge amount about our target consumers from the data that they provide. And we've seen some, the other speakers have spoken about this. The second aspect is targeting, right? Because of the amount of data that consumers produce, we know a huge amount about who they are, what they're doing, where they are. We talked about the micro moments, and that gives us real micro-targeting abilities if we know how to use that data. By targeting, I mean reaching them at the right time, the right moment, the right place. We can also do things like retargeting, which is, I'm sure you've all seen on if you use Facebook, you see ads, and then suddenly you go to some website for the first time in your life, and then 10 minutes later on Facebook, you're seeing ads from that site, from that company. That's simply because they're retargeting you. They found out that you visited their site, and they told Facebook to show you ads. That's what it is. Optimization is another aspect. With data, the big thing that data allows is to continuously improve your business processes and your marketing things, and that's through the process of optimization. Automation is another big buzzword I'm sure you've all heard. Allows marketing to, because there's so much data, if you don't automate these processes, it's almost impossible for one person or one team to do it. This is where automation comes in and AI comes in. Personalization, we know so much about you. If we want to target, we all want to receive something that is customized, relevant, and personalized to us. And ultimately, though, the real reason why it's so damn important is because it's about ROI, right? And today, more than ever, any boss, any CEO expects to know the ROI or the return on marketing investment of whatever you're doing. And therefore, if you want to keep your job as a CMO, you better have some answer which is, no, don't worry, it's working out, right? You've got to give some data to that. So back to the original topic. What is a marketing technology stack? It's basically a collection of technology-based tools that a marketing team or a company uses to effectively reach their target consumers or market their product to that target consumer, right? And that's basically what it is. A lot of these tend to be SaaS services, so software as a service, or they can be systems that you deploy and you invest a significant amount of money and put into your company. But that's basically what a marketing stack is. It's the different services working together. So what are the main elements? This is not an exhaustive list, but these are the kind of key components that almost every company is using. The first is, of course, what's known as a CMS, a content management system. And this is basically, I'll get into what it is of all these things in the next few slides. The second part is a CRM. We've all heard this. CRMs have been around for donkey's years. They get more sophisticated, right? But basically, customer relationship management tool. You then have this whole thing about email and automation. And automation is typically used with email a lot of times, or any messaging platform. Acquisition technology, right? It's typically things like your advertising solutions or SEO. Analytics, right? And this comes down to the analytics I'm talking about here is analytics that allows you to optimize conversion and optimization of your marketing, right? Social media, of course, in terms of the management of the social media activities you do, and also analyzing what people are saying out there and how they think about your brand or your company. So let's get into the next part. So what's a CMS? A CMS is basically the platform on which most of your front-end content, digital content, is stored on, right? So if you have a website, you have a CMS. You may or may not know what that CMS is, but you definitely have it, right? And it typically acts as the home base of all your front-end digital activities. By front-end, I mean what the customer sees, right? Not what you're using at the back, what the customer sees. So platforms such as, for example, WordPress, Joomla. If you're in e-commerce, you might be using things like Shopify, Magento. These are basically CMS platforms, right? And they drive engagement, lead generation, acquisition, the whole range of things. A CRM, instead, is the platform where your customer data throughout the customer journey, right? Right up from awareness down to becoming a customer or even retaining a customer, that's typically where your data is stored. And by storing it on a CRM, you're able to segment, analyze, and use that data more effectively. And CRMs are typically useful for conversion, to retain, and to maximize the lifetime value from your customers. Email automation, simple enough. It's those systems that are used to send out emails and automate that process, right? A big part of this is the personalization and the automatic triggering of emails or messaging solutions. So this is where you have things like, MailChimp, GetResponse, Aweber, these kind of platforms or services that you might have heard of. And this is very useful for engagement and conversion. Acquisition technologies typically comes down to advertising and SEO. So advertising are all the platforms that allow you to better reach your target consumers. And we've heard a lot about, for example, the automation of advertising platforms, right? Where you put in a certain budget and the platform, the AI, decides where to allocate the budgets. So that's part of these technologies. You also have then the SEO tools that allow you to, the term is organically improve your visibility. Organically basically means you're not paying for it, right? So typically when you look into something for a search engine, if you've optimized it well, your product or your brand or whatever you're selling comes out at top. And that's the SEO part. And again, a whole bunch of different tools here that can be used. We have analytics, which is on the conversion and the optimization side. These are tools that basically allow you to maximize the effectiveness of your marketing process online, right? So they do this by basically continuously testing whatever you're putting out there in front of consumers, whether they be ads, whether they be your website, your landing page, your lead generation. They continuously test, and they automatically replace certain elements based on those tests, right? So using a form of AI and machine learning. And that's what they're useful for. So these are things, for example, like your landing page builders, your contact forms, pop-ups, when you have live chat features on websites, heat maps, all of these kind of technologies are what's used to optimize and improve the conversion rate. And finally, social media management and analytics. Lots of conversations are happening out there. We heard today how important it is to track those. This is where these platforms such as Hootsuite, Meltwater, Wisesight, of course, we have Wisesight here. These platforms allow us to tap into the conversation and to, best of our ability, contribute and manage what's going on. Okay, so that's just a brief introduction of what these platforms are for and what the basic components of a marketing stack is. So, can your business benefit from having a good marketing technology stack? The answer is almost certainly yes. To varying degrees, of course, but it's almost certainly yes. The problem, though, that companies will face, or any CMO will face, is this. So this is a map, as of 2017, of little icons. All those little images you see up there are little icons, little brand logos. And this is the marketing technology landscape as it is today, right? So there are almost 5,400 different services and solutions out there. And all of these guys are marketing to you continuously every day, right? So the big problem is, how the hell do you decide what to use, right? There'll be, you're given too much information. That's where we end up paralyzed as consumers. It's like, oh, there's too much stuff to decide about, and let's just not use anything, right? And that's a real problem, because there's no way you can test all these solutions. So how does a company start? How do we start this whole process? The good news is there is no one rule to fit all companies. It really does boil down to your individual needs. So that's the good news, right? So it's not like you have to do this and that's the only way to do it. The problem is it requires homework because it has to suit your business. So you need to spend time to understand your business. And I'm going to take you through 6 principles, right? Not, golden rules or anything like that, but 6 principles that would be useful in helping you decide what kind of marketing technology to use and how to put it together. So what are those rules? The first and most important one is to assess your resources. We'll get into this straight after this. The second part is about mapping your customer journey with your specific business model and process. Third, very, very important, it's defining what the hell you want out of this. It's defining what are the key metrics that you're going to measure. What are those metrics for your business? The fourth is visualizing how all these various marketing technologies will work together and making sure that they are future-proof. Not that they're only going to serve you today, but think about growth, because this is all about growth. The fifth is really start and master the basics before you get excited with everything else. And the sixth is to operate like a startup, which is basically to be continuously testing, optimizing, and growing from there. If you don't operate that way, most of this technology is a waste of time. So let's get into it. The first one is about the resources, right? So what is it? People, you need to have the expertise. At a very basic level, at least you need to have the interest, right? You can buy the best technology, but if no one in the company wants to use it or understands what the hell it's for or why they should use it, you're going to have a problem. So when it comes to people, you've either got to have the resource inside, have the people at the start, or you outsource it at the beginning and train up your people. But don't underestimate this. The technology is useless without the team using it. The second thing is aligning with your IT department, if you have an IT department, which most established companies do. It's very, very important because as marketeers, we like doing our own thing. Leave us alone. We'll figure it out. We'll manage it. Just, you come to me at the end of the year and tell me whether I still got a job. But leave it to me, right? And IT does their own thing. They've got their ERP. They've got all the, the company-wide systems. But the problem is more and more these technologies overlap and they merge. And it's very important that you start talking to your IT department early on, even if, unfortunately, IT has a different way of viewing things. But we've got to get together and make sure that our objectives are aligned. Another area is your budget. Marketing technology, there are a lot of free solutions out there, but a lot of these free solutions have got a lot of limitations. So what you'll find is it can be expensive. especially if you start buying everything or make mistakes and sign 3-year contracts because, hey, it's $50 cheaper per year. That's when it can get really, really expensive. So an important thing is to make sure that you're clear on what you're able to spend for a particular year, and don't go beyond that. Use that as your budget and rule out anything that doesn't fit into that budget. The fourth aspect is your time frame. These things take time. If anyone tells you you can get it all sorted within a week and you're going to be, you're like the top e-commerce company out there, it's complete bullshit, right? So keep that in mind. It takes time. You need to have the time to invest behind it. Especially as the boss, as the CMO, or whatever the CEO, you need to get involved in this process to understand it. Okay, the second principle is making sure that this technology fits your needs and your business model. So 2 aspects to this. For example, at a basic level, are you a B2B company or a B2C company? Or, of course, there are hybrids, right? But let's just keep it simple, B2B, B2C. Very, very different needs, right? So, for example, a CRM typically is very, very important for a B2B. Why? Because the life cycle, the sales cycle is a lot longer. You may start something today, your sale will conclude in 6 months, you need multiple contacts with that one customer. Versus something where you're selling direct to the customer, a retail store, for example, you may not need a full-blown CRM. You may need it maybe for a loyalty program, etc. But you need to understand how your business model requires technology. Again, we talked about the purchase time. Is it a direct purchase? Do you have a sales team? If you have a sales team, you need to make sure that the sales team, you're clear in terms of how they will use that technology and the data you're creating. Are you an online versus offline business? It's a no-brainer for an online e-commerce portal, but if you're offline, where do you need that technology? Single or repeat purchase, a very important thing. CRMs are hugely useful for repeat purchase, where you have high frequency of repeat sales to that one customer, right? But if you're a single purchase, like let's say you're a university, typically you're only going to do 1 degree and then we never see you again, right? So again, you need to take that into account in terms of what you need. And of course, the life cycle, right? How long do you foresee a single customer staying in that? So these are all questions you need to ask yourself and understand at which points do you need help in. How can technology fit into those points? The third, and probably the most important thing, is define your metrics. What are your key indicators for your business, right? And there can be, we all get lost in dashboards, right? We have 10,000 things we want to do, and the hardest part is ruling stuff out. But you have to do that. So let's say you have, the customer life cycle from awareness down to purchase. Pick 1, at most 2 metrics at each point in time and focus on that. Ask yourself, what technology do I need to improve that particular metric? Whether it's, the number of people, the number of leads that I'm generating online, or the number of leads that I'm providing to my sales guys. Focus on that one single metric throughout the process. And don't get lost in the 1,000 possible data points that analytics can provide, right? Because otherwise you won't do any of it. Establish benchmarks before you start. So with those metrics in mind, where are you at the start of the process and where will you be later so that you can see whether things are working or not working. So measurability is key, but you need to pick a few because we can't keep track of that many things. The fourth part is, especially when you start building a stack, which is basically multiple technologies, you need to see how it fits in to the whole journey. So this is an example. Let me see if this works. Does it work? Oh, yeah, well. This is an example. So if we see from a particular company, right, from this company called DataPipe, as you can see, they've mapped it out across their customer life cycle, right? And you can see how they map out the different technologies in terms of where they fit. But it's not just about putting nice logos in boxes. What's very important is, if you notice this bit, oh, sorry, not that. If you notice this bit here, it's how the data, how the data flows into each solution. That's the important bit. Because the key thing here is to ensure that your various systems talk to each other. If you don't have the luxury of being able to develop everything yourself, and more often than not, it's a complete waste of time and resources to develop it yourself, you'll need to ensure that the systems can talk to each other and that integrate well. Otherwise, you've got a whole number of separate services, and that's going to make life a lot harder. So if you map out just how these things need to work in a very simple, logical fashion, you'll be able to ask the vendors who are selling you how to fit their system into your map. Yeah? And the other aspect when you do this is also then figure out, can this scale? Because if you put in platforms that are good for today, that may be cheap and affordable for today, but then your business grows 10x in the next year, and all your systems are obsolete because they can't cope, you're going to have problems. So by mapping it out in this way, you're able to ensure that the process is scalable. Another aspect is, by mapping it out like this, accountability. Assign process owners for each part if you have a team. If you're a one-man show, okay, you have to do this whole thing yourself. But if you have a team, it's important to know who is responsible for what. I mentioned earlier the importance of having people that can use the service. The fifth principle is really about mastering the core basics first. With 5,500 solutions, people selling you new stuff all the time. We touched on it earlier in the panel about, do you need all the sexy stuff, right? Every day somebody is showing you what technology is capable of, etc. The bottom line is you don't need most of it, right? You really don't. It may seem really exciting to have, but you just need the basics for your business. And don't get sidetracked by all the sexy stuff, because it really is an 80-20 rule here, right? 80% of the value is going to come from 20% of the technology you put in place. So start with those basics, master them, and only once you master them, then move on to adding more functionality. And the sixth, which is back to the whole operating like a startup, right? It's all of these tools are only as good as the data that you're creating, right? And to create data, data needs testing. You're not going to get a lot of data without testing. You will get the data, but you will not be able to optimize the process. You will not be able to improve the process. And all of these tools are designed with that purpose of continuous optimization, automation, and improvement. And this is exactly how startups do. Straight after me, Winnie from Fave will be talking about the experience with Fave, one of the top startups in Malaysia. And you see, it's just continuous optimization. And the only way to do that is to adopt that whole startup thing, which is testing, right? Continuously testing, and instead of trying 2 things, try 6 things. With a method, of course. Don't try 6 things and then, not deliver on any of them. I remember, for example, I did a project with Fave and KFit about 1.5 years ago, and we had a very gung-ho team back then. And they were all very proud. When I first came in, they were all very proud to say, oh, we set this whole thing up. We've got 100 tests running at the same time, right? And then I said, okay, so what are we going to do with these 100 tests? What did we learn? And that's the reaction I got, right? It's just because we just get freaking lost in our data. They're very proud that they're doing 100 tests at the same time, but they have no idea what to do with it. So for the love of God, do not, oh yeah, test, but then you don't know what to do. It's test with a method, with a process. Test, optimize, retest, etc. So think in a startup fashion. And that's really it. So really, I hope that gave a little overview and a little practical guide on how to use marketing technology. It does require a lot of work and a lot of thinking about the business. But if you invest the time in that, you'll find that you will waste a lot less money, a lot less time, and probably get better results from the technology you use. Thank you. Any questions?
Next step.